What's up, guys? Me, Alan. I'm back with another video. And earlier tonight, we had the season 3 finale of Diecastbuffet's NASCAR Duralast Cup Series. And of course, as I did before, and as I did with season 2, making a video on it and about the second half of the season. Um, so let's just go ahead and jump right into that. Now, where we left off from the first half of the season, through the first 7 races um, of the year. Ross Chastain was still leading in the points. Darrell Wallace Jr. was sitting in second. Clint Boyer was in third. Dominic Konarski was fourth, and Kevin Harvick was fifth. You had Eric Jones, Alex Bowman, Austin Dillon, Denny Hamlin, and Martin Truex Jr. filling out the top 10, with the likes of Christopher Bell, Tyler Reddick, Ryan Newman, William Byron, and Jimmy Johnson all sitting in the top 15. And up to this point, Jimmy Johnson had gotten 2 wins after not making the Daytona 500. Um, it was wild, to say the least. And the rest of the season would be wild, to say the least. Just, you'll see. So, we get to race number 9. Race 8 was actually the All-Star race. So, we get to the 9th race of the year, 6 races to go in the season, and Kyle Busch took home the W in Texas. Ross Chastain still sitting in the points lead. And that's the biggest thing, is Ross Chastain would hold the points lead for most of the season. But late in the year was not, it would not be the case for him. Then we go to Richmond, and Reed Sorensen picked up the W. Now, the funny thing about this is he almost won a race earlier in the year until Clint Boyer beat him from the last spot. And what's even funnier is that Sorensen has missed a few races and would miss a few races throughout the season. So that hurt him overall, because he could have been a championship contender. Now, this race, on top of that, this race had a lot of DNFs. Only 23 cars finished the race, and the likes of Kyle Busch, Martin Truex Jr., William Byron, Eric Almirola, Eric Jones, Kurt Busch, Ryan Blaney, Cole Custer, John Hunter Nemechek, Brad Keselowski, Tyler Reddick, and Darrell Wallace Jr., among others, wrecked out of this race. And Ross Chastain continued to build his points lead over second place Clint Boyer. But at the same time, with all the guys that wrecked and Jimmy Johnson grabbing a top 5 finish, he jumped up big time, picking up 6 spots and moving into 7th in the standings. And then we go to Talladega, which was another wreck fest. Half the field got knocked out. Only 20 cars survived. Martin Truex Jr., Ty Dillon, Corey LaJoie, Kurt Busch, points leader Ross Chastain, Chris Buescher, Eric Jones, Brad Keselowski, Clint Boyer, Tyler Reddick, John Hunter Nemechek, Christopher Bell, Ryan Blaney, Matt DiBenedetto, Darrell Wallace Jr., Kevin Harvick, Cole Custer, Eric Almirola, Austin Dillon, among others, got knocked out of this race. But it was the guy that won that shocked us all. Quinn Houff. Yeah, Quinn Houff got the win. I mean, it's Talladega, so if that was to happen in real life, if you were to make it to that point in the race, it would still be surprising. But yeah, he did, and that was huge for him. Especially going into next season, which we'll get to in a little bit. But yeah, that was a big day. JJ Yaley, BJ McLeod, they were all in the top 10. Jimmy Johnson picked up a 10th place finish. Dominic Konarski grabbed 11th, and that's crucial because Dominic Konarski would actually jump into the number 2 spot in points. Boyer would drop to 3rd. He only dropped 1 spot with the DNF, but that was because the gap between Chastain, the gaps between first and second, and then second and third, and then third below was crazy. You had Chastain being up 135 points on Boyer. Boyer was only 35 up on Konareski, and then Konareski was a full 100 up on Austin Dillon, who was in fourth, entering Talladega. Exiting Talladega, Chastain would be at 1,915 points, but only a 75-point gap on Konareski going into the next race. Boyer was down to like 160 points back. Then you had Newman. Jimmy Johnson moved into the top five. William Byron jumped up a bunch of spots to sixth. You get the point. So then we go into race number 7 or race number 12, Bristol. William Byron scores the W, and this was a big day for a bunch of guys in the top half of the group. Byron, Newman, Eric Jones, Denny Hamlin, all having big points days. Nobody DNF'd either, so that helped. Boyer ended up finishing back in 33rd. Johnson was back in 22nd. Chastain was 14th. Konareski 15th. So coming out of this race, 80-point gap between Chastain and Konareski going into the final two races of the season. Newman was right there. Byron, Boyer, Hamlin, Johnson. They're all still there. And then we go into Homestead, or sorry, that's race 14. My apologies. 13, race number 13, Atlanta. And Jimmy Johnson scored his third W this season. It was crazy. He ended up beating out his teammate Chase Elliott. Boyer was third. Konareski was fifth. Newman was eighth. We did have some DNFs, and Chastain was one of them, which was huge. And that actually allowed Dominic Konareski to move into the points lead over Chastain with a pretty decent gap. And Newman was second, Newman was third, Boyer was fourth. Hamlin and Johnson were tied for fifth. I put it in the comments under that race what the championship scenario was, and basically going into this finale at Homestead, there was a chance for I think it was really only the top 4 or so that had a chance. And in the end, after Homestead, which was earlier tonight, Kevin Harvick picks up his first win in the series, but with a 5th place finish for Konareski compared to a 17th place finish for Chastain, Dominic Konareski would win the championship in season 3 based on my points standings. Obviously, in Diecastbuffet's point standings, it would be Clint Boyer getting the W. In the end, Ross Chastain would finish second, only 10 points up on Boyer for that spot. Then you had Newman, Johnson, Hamlin, Byron, Busch, Bowman, and Elliott. So all 400 guys finished in the top 10 in points based on my standings to close out the season. So, looking at this top 10 in points, Chastain will not be in the 39 next year for Diecastbuffet's team, Buffet Racing South. He's obviously going to be in the 42 because that's what he runs in the Cup Series now. Boyer is going to be gone. He retires, so and we already know Chase Briscoe is going to be in the 14. Jimmy Johnson retires. Alex Bowman will be in the 48 next season. So 3 out of the top 5. It's kind of similar to last year with the way that the season finished out in a way with some of the guys that were up near the top and the changes that happened. Well, 3 out of the top 5 are not going to be in that car or their cars going into next season. Matt Kenseth took home a 12th place finish in points. He's obviously gone. That will be Chastain's ride. Eric Jones, who finished 14th place in the 20 car. Christopher Bell will be there. Darrell Wallace Jr. finished 15th in the 43. He'll obviously be in the 23 car, hopefully, depending on when that gets released. Because, again, if you haven't already known, Diecastbuffet will be doing season 4, and that kicks off around late July, early August. So there's going to be a lot of changes going forward and going into next season. But while we're talking about my points, we also have to talk about Diecastbuffet's point standings. And we all know the rule: the top 30 are locked in next year. Um, if you're outside the top 30, you're not. And looking at everybody that got points, Brad Keselowski, all of Team Penske is going to be in open cars next year. Which, if you thought Jimmy Johnson being in an open car to enter this season was crazy, season 4 having all 3 Penske cars in open cars is going to be even crazier. Well, actually, no, not all 3. Blaney, he will not be in an open car. He actually, because of he having a really good finish today, he will actually be locked in. It'll be Logano and Keselowski in open cars going into next season. In addition, Anthony Alfredo, who takes over for the 38 car from John Hunter Nemechek, that will be an open car going into next season. Daniel Suarez, well, he's going from the 96 to the 99, so that really doesn't count necessarily. But Tyler Reddick will also be an open car with the 8 next year. But what's crazy about this is that um, 5 different drivers tied with 6 points apiece, one of which being last season's champion, Alex Bowman. He ends up finishing 29th. Um, Overall. So he'll obviously be locked in. But just looking at some of the names, Reed Sorensen being locked in with a 77. I believe Diecastbuffet said that Sorensen will not be competing next season. I don't know. So if somebody does get the 77 ride, that car is technically locked in for next season, which will help tremendously. Um, just looking at some of the other names on here, it's insane. Quinn Houff will be locked in next year if he competes. Elliott Sadler, if he comes back with the 60, will be locked in. Um, it's going to be wild next season. And when you think about it, because of all the driver changes, plus Kyle Larson comes back, there are some others as well. So next season, I'm really interested to see what Diecastbuffet has in store for next season. But overall, I'm enjoying the hell out of this, and I'm glad he's going to do a season 4. And I personally can't wait. So, with all of that being said, thank you all for watching. Hope y'all enjoyed. Link to his channel in the description below. Um, Again, thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed. If you did, subscribe to his channel and mine. I will see you all next time. Peace.